Have you ever looked at a warship sitting on the horizon and thought, I wish I could do my best Houthi impression and attempt to turn that thing into an artificial reef? Well, so is the Australian Army. And that is basically the problem they are trying to solve with LAND 8113 Phase 2. Since Australia decommissioned its coastal forts following World War II, the Australian Army has not been in the business of sinking ships. That job has been passed off to the RAN and the RAAF. With the rise of China, however, and the giant Thucydides trap we call the Pacific Ocean, the strategic environment has changed. Littoral warfare, both offensive and defensive, became all the rage following the 2023 Defence Strategic Review, and land-based maritime strike capability is now number one on the Army's to-do list. So, how'd we get here? LAND 8113 didn't start with anti-ship missiles. Phase 1 was about dragging the Army into the long-range precision fires era. For decades, Australian land forces relied entirely on howitzers. Artillery topped out at distances that were tactically useful but strategically irrelevant. Phase 1 changed that, with the founding of Australia's first long-range fires regiment and the acquisition of Lockheed Martin's HIMARS, or High Mobility Artillery Rocket System. This wasn't a vanity purchase. It was accelerated after the DSR made it clear that Australia needed forces capable of contributing to deterrence by denial, not just local ground combat. Australia now fields a HIMARS regiment under 10th Brigade, has integrated it into joint and allied targeting networks, and has already conducted live firing of advanced missiles on Australian soil. Phase 1 proved the Army could operate long-range precision fire safely, credibly, and at speed. Phase 2 is about what comes next. From long-range fires to maritime strike. LAND 8113 Phase 2 expands the mission from striking land targets to holding hostile naval forces at risk from land, firmly establishing an indigenous anti-access area denial capability. That matters because Australia is a maritime nation surrounded by vast sea approaches dotted with small islands. Coastal cruise missile defence allows the Army to establish and defend itself without relying on constant support from RAAF or RAN assets, freeing them up for other tasking. Government approval for a second long-range fires regiment was given late last year. The unit will also sit under 10th Brigade. The only unresolved question is what system will it use? Option 1. HIMARS with Precision Strike Missile Increment 2. The first option is evolutionary rather than revolutionary. HIMARS is already in service, crews are trained, logistics exist, command and control systems are integrated. From an Army perspective, this is familiar ground. The key change is the missile. The Precision Strike Missile Increment 2 introduces a multi-mode seeker to engage moving and maritime targets, extending the reach of the Australian Army deep into the maritime domain. By integrating with joint and coalition fire networks, PRSM Increment 2 will allow Australia to deliver precision strike effects from shore to the sea, contributing directly to deterrence and wide area sea denial. From a capability standpoint, this is hard to ignore. Range equals options, range equals deterrence, and range equals relevance in Australia's geography. There is also the question of maturity. HIMARS is combat proven, widely fielded, and continually upgraded. PRSM is part of a massive allied ecosystem that is already evolving based on real-world lessons. Phase 2 with HIMARS is not a new capability stack. It is an extension of an existing fires architecture, adding maritime strike as another mission rather than creating a parallel system. The criticism, of course, is industrial. HIMARS and PRSM are anchored in the United States. It's a classic foreign military sales acquisition, with the associated well-known risks. While Australia is moving towards local production of HIMARS-compatible munitions, and has agreements that may bring elements of missile manufacturing to Australian shores over time, this is not immediate sovereign production in the way some would like. Supporters argue this is a strength, access to scale, upgrades, and assured interoperability with allies. Critics argue it is dependency, and the moment the US decides Australian acquisition isn't a priority, will suffer. This brings us to our option 2, Kongsberg Strikemaster with Naval Strike Missile. Strikemaster approaches the problem from the opposite direction. Rather than extending an existing Army fire system, Strikemaster is a purpose-built, land-based maritime strike solution, paired with the already fielded Naval Strike Missile. NSM is not a hypothetical for Australia. It is already in service with the Royal Australian Navy. That means the missile itself, its sustainment, testing and handling, already exists inside the Australian defence system. The missile itself is similar to PRSM in function only, differing in its passive electro-optical infrared seeker head, lacking an active radar component. Mounted on a Bushmaster 4x4 chassis, the system gives the Army a dedicated anti-ship capability optimised for engaging naval targets, particularly in littoral and expeditionary scenarios. But where Strikemaster really leans in is industry. The launcher is based on Australian-built vehicles. Manufacturing and integration occur across Victoria, South Australia, Queensland and New South Wales. Missile manufacturing and maintenance are supported domestically. In-service support is Australian. This is not a future promise. It is infrastructure that already exists or is already funded. The argument here is about sovereign resilience, jobs, skills, facilities and sustainment capacity that remain available even under stress. The downside is that Strikemaster is more specialised. It does not slot neatly into the Army's existing long-range fires ecosystem, and it loses out fairly significantly in the range competition, with a max range of 250 km to HIMARS' 400 km plus. It solves the problem it is designed for extremely well, but it does less outside that lane. This is where the debate becomes more interesting. Strikemaster's infrastructure advantage to the ADF and the Australian government is industrial and geographic. Facilities, workers, supply chains and missile support already exists in Australia. NSM is already part of the ADF inventory. Choosing Strikemaster compounds that investment. HIMARS' infrastructure advantage to the Army is military and organisational. Units exist, training exists, command systems exist, fires doctrine exists. PRSM fits into that framework with minimal disruption. In other words, one option builds outwards from the industry, the other from force structure. Neither is wrong, but they optimise for different kinds of resiliences and advertise to different audiences. HIMARS advertised to the Army, Strikemaster advertised to the government. At its core, this is not a launcher comparison. It is a strategic choice about what Australia values more right now. Do you prioritise extending the Army's existing long-range fires capability into the maritime domain, maximising range, integration and alliance interoperability, or do you prioritise embedding sovereign industry deeper into the ADF, leveraging a missile already in naval service and accepting a more specialised but nationally controlled solution? Both paths deliver land-based maritime strike. Both contribute to deterrence. The difference is philosophical as much as it is technical. In closing, this is your call. What would you choose? HIMARS with Precision Strike Increment 2, doubling down on range, integration, allied scale, or Strikemaster with its naval strike missile, building sovereign industry around a capability Australia already fields at sea. Let me know in the comments which option you prefer and more importantly, why. If you enjoyed, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.